And good day and welcome to WEDCOnomics, brought to you by Wentworth Economic Development Corporation. I'm Jack Terrill, I'm the Executive Director. And also brought to you by Wolfeboro Community TV, your local resource for all that's going on. Please remember Wolfeboro Community TV in your annual giving plans. It means a lot, and it's very important that this be a vibrant source of information for the community. We're very blessed to have Wolfeboro Community TV. They are housed in Kingswood High School. They got all kinds of wonderful equipment, and they really do a great job. Timothy Goodwin is the director, bringing you the latest and the greatest in the Wolfeboro Eastern Lakes region area. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 3, season 2. It's a special one. First of all, we have our first live audience. Thank you, Judy. And we have a really interesting topic today. I'd like to introduce Jeffrey Johnson, Executive Consultant for Global Search, Interlogic, Sydney, Australia. The topic or the name of the show today is A View from Down Under. And so, Jeffrey, thanks for coming on.
Very glad to be here, Jack.
What exactly is Executive Consultant Global Search, Interlogic, Sydney, Australia? And why don't you have an Australian accent?
Because I was born locally.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But moved to Australia, lived there off and on for 30 years. And Interlogic is a high-tech search and consultancy firm. And right now specializing in both logistics and the new age logistics and defense. And so I work with one client, Indra, global defense contractor, and in their HR and talent plans, and it's great. But it's also great to be back in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean, and we're happy to have you back.
Thanks.
So, you that watch the show, our regular viewers are saying, well, WEDCO is all about advising, financing, and promoting small business in Eastern Lakes region. What the heck is Jeffrey Johnson doing on WEDCOnomics? And I thought we could have a conversation today, because you have a vast array of experience, and a lot of it on the Pacific Rim, Australia, Singapore. A lot of it's big business, but you also have experience with small business, and I wanted to have a conversation today about what small business looks like over in the Pacific Rim versus what it looks like here in the Eastern Lakes region of New Hampshire, and some of the differences, and just sort of have a conversation along those.
Yeah,
along
that's
those
great,
lines.
and it's a topic that's absolutely near and dear to my heart. And like we were saying, every large company started off as an SME, and
SME being
small to medium enterprise.
okay.
Sorry to use the jargon.
That's all right. I'll call you out on it when you do.
And I've participated in now 6 startups in various locations: Dubai and Sydney and Singapore, and here in New Hampshire. And so small business is near and dear to my heart, and I'd love to help you in any way to grow it here in the Lakes region.
Well, sort of the mission of WEDCOnomics is sort of to be educational in a degree for the viewers. A lot of people are considering opening up a business or starting a business, or a lot of people have a great idea, and how do you bring that great idea from the kitchen table to actual fruition? And you actually, as you said, you had 6 different startup sort of experiences. You had one over, I think it was in Australia. We were startup with a Hallmark?
And that was actually Singapore. So I built from, I like to say, I started with a paperclip, and it was given to me by the Hallmark Corporation and Jim Henson. They were my 2 bosses.
The Jim Henson?
Yes, and I was hired to to create 2 new satellite television networks headquartered in Singapore, but throughout Asia Pac. But in the beginning, it was me, a paperclip, and an idea. Find an office to work out of, and start to find some staff and do it within a tight budget, and compete with large companies that were already operating in the space. And so when I see people who are thinking of starting a small business, it excites me, and the first advice I give them is just do it. Just start it, right? I had a mentor when, it was probably 30 years ago, but the best advice she ever gave me was, do it now, we can do it right later. So the emphasis was on just get at it. You'll get it right.
That reminds me of when I was in grad school, and over a 2-year period we were going to write some 30 or 36 papers. And the advice given by the dean of the school was, just sit down and start writing. Just start writing. Don't sit there and go, oh my God, I've got 36 papers to write. And this will never happen. Just sit down and write. Just like that advice was. You can hone it later, but get going, get started. So, so we're talking Jim Henson, we're talking the Muppets here, we're talking...
It was the Kermit Channel, no surprise.
We're talking Singapore, very exotic stuff, but when you peel all that away, there are some basics that I'm sure you learned along the way that would apply just as much to the Kermit station in Singapore as it would to the coffee shop in Wakefield.
And actually, what I would say is there's far more similarities than there are differences, right? The issues and challenges are exactly the same. And as we were talking, before we began recording, you were asking me what are the differences between large corporate and a small business, and where there's similarities. And there's actually more similarities.
So what were some of the challenges? I mean, you touched upon, funding, for one, having to fund the operation, but what other sort of challenges did you have to tackle in order to get from point A to point B?
I mean, if I was opening a business here in the Lakes region, and there's a lot of reasons why I would want to, but one of the same as in Singapore, the first thing is define the business, right? And if you can't define it, I always refer to the elevator pitch. If you can't describe the business that you are in or you want to start, and the time it takes you to take a ride on the lift, and so in about 30 seconds you're going nowhere. So put a tight definition.
Would you call that a mission statement?
No, I'd call it the opening paragraph of the business plan.
Okay.
It's what business am I in, and then who are my customers. So who's my target market, and very, very specific. So who's gonna buy my coffee? Who's gonna buy my construction service if I'm going into real estate here, or in this case, who'd be interested in my network? But at a very specific level, and because then as I'm looking at how I'm going to engage, the business, it's all around what's going to appeal to the group that I'm after. Now that may evolve over time, but that level of specifics is where you start.
But as you said earlier, get it on paper, get it down, hone it later.
Yeah.
Right? As things become clearer as you operate, then there's always room to adjust. But business plans are just for giant businesses, right?
I think that the business plan, the simple answer is no. And I wrote the business plan for what became the $3 billion startup Optus Vision in a partnership with AT&T in Australia, and which is a massive document, which I save to this day. And but I actually think that it's more important for the small business to have a clear plan, because they don't have a lot of staff. They need something that they can be going back to on a regular basis as a reminder. When it comes down to, should I spend $500 on that? Going back to the business plan will tell me that, oh, that's right. That's not really important to what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And so I think that it's absolutely critical. And for anyone listening, it's one of the ways that I think your WEDCO provides. I think the most valuable services that you provide is not startup or seed funding or growth funding for small business, but this focus on having a business plan, and helping them construct it, teaching them how to present it, because they're going to be presenting it to a board who will be making financial decisions. And it reminds me, and I didn't tell you this, but I had experience working with the Singapore Economic Development Board, and from a mission statement to how you operate with small businesses, I swear the two boards are so similar.
Well, that's good to hear. There are basics, there are business basics that simply don't vary regardless of the geography. And I think one of the most important things that those that are looking to start a business or grow a business is the business plan is not something you write and put on a shelf. It's very much a living document.
Yeah.
And as you alluded to, it's a way to anchor you in how you proceed on any given day or on a day-to-day basis. If you're being asked to do this and the business plan does not support that, you need to rethink whether you should be doing that. And it's possible it needs to be incorporated into the business plan because it's a great idea.
Yep.
But it's also possible that it'll knock you off your axis and you become wobbly as a business.
It would be one of the top 3 or 5 reasons why small businesses and large businesses fail is getting distracted. And that's where the business plan helps you. That staying focused is a way to eliminate distractions. Because when people come to you, I've got a great idea, or an investment of a certain amount of money here, or do I hire a new staff, or do I start pursuing a new market, right? It's those distractions that, because a small business is operating with finite resource, right?
Very much, very much so.
I'm certainly a big believer in it. They also are short, and they should be dog-eared, to relate to what you were saying. When I would go in, and because I still do consulting with small businesses and serve on the board of governors of 2 organizations right now, and I ask for it, and they know what I'm looking for now, and they're probably trying to dog-ear it before I show up for the next meeting.
They are now.
But it tells me that that they're using it, right? And it is a way of resolving disputes in a small organization. There might be 4 or 5 people involved. How do you resolve disputes among you? And the best way to do that is always say, it's not us, right? It's the business plan, right? And it's so the decision, yay or nay, on something, to have it be based on that as opposed to the personalities. It can save a business in the long run. I mean, there's so many reasons to begin and move forward with that doc.
Yeah, we're not going to finance anybody without a business plan. And we have resources to help you build that business plan, which should be taken advantage of, because just because you got a great idea doesn't mean you're an expert in developing a business plan.
Right.
Sometimes you need help. And you mentioned earlier when you started up that network in Singapore, it was just you and the seeds of an idea.
Right.
But there's so many different aspects to running a business, many of which are not core to the actual fruition of the idea, but they're necessary. You have limited resources. You're forced to wear many different hats because of that, just as any of our small businesses here in the Eastern Lakes region. When do you decide, or how do you decide, which hat to put on and which hat to have someone else wear? And not necessarily within the organization, but someone that has that expertise to handle it. When do you decide, or how do you decide, what to keep to yourself and how to utilize outside resources?
Well, I think this direction that you're going around the virtual company is it's an area that I've spent a lot of time working in, both within my organization in Singapore, but with the clients that I have, and you're spot on. I mean, so because we've got limited resource, if an activity, it does not directly impact my end client, could be for a product, could be for a service. If it's not impacting it, then in most cases, I'm taking that to a third party. And so, HR, I never had human resource, I never had accounting, logistics, admin, all of that I would do through third-party contractors, and a lot of service fulfillment as well. You'd think, well, I want to control service fulfillment, but I would look for expert organizations first, because as long as I can meet the service expectations, it allows me to control my expenditure in direct proportion to the number of clients, the amount of business I have, as opposed to bringing in fixed permanent resource that I'm funding regardless of whether or not they're operating at peak capacities. It's key.
Yeah,
it's key.
It's huge.
And it's easier today than it was 20 years ago. It's so easy today to execute in that manner. IT services, and it's become inexpensive, right?
Because there's so many options.
Yeah.
Are you talking specifically Pacific Rim, or are you talking?
Oh no, I'm talking right here in Wolfeboro.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's there is.
So your starting point was, does this directly impact my end user or my customer, my client?
Right. And can I draw a direct line? Here's my business plan again, between that and the creation of revenue, right, or the fulfillment of that product or service. And if it's outside of that, my first answer is going to be no. Find a third party. Are there exceptions? Yes. But in general, especially for during that early development, it's I'm going outside.
So the network, the Jim Henson Network, the Muppet Network in Singapore. At some point, you needed to secure some financing, did you not?
Yeah.
And so, obviously, you had success in getting the network off the ground.
And most of it, I had lined up with the partners beforehand, right? So it was a combination of private equity and in this case, the WEDCO of Singapore, right? The Singapore Development Council. Because why not? Those funds are available.
Because I was thinking of opening a branch in Singapore.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I think you would succeed with the model that you're doing here. I think more people should at least be talking to you about what services are available. I'm sure that most people are still unaware. And when I sat down and went through what WEDCO is all about, I was blown away.
Thank you. But you had success securing financing. Yeah. My question is, how did you get those people with the money interested so that they were willing to invest in what you are selling.
And I'll let's back into that. And if I was talking to, if in the audience today we had, 3 or 4 individuals who were considering doing something in business, this is where, and I'm going to start with the business plan again. So, what's my product and service, and what's my market? And before I'm looking for finance, I'm looking to confirm that what I'm pursuing is hot. It's a hot product, it's a growth area, and because what is going to sell a WEDCO, a greenfields investor, or a corporation looking to develop a new product line but outside of their bureaucracy, that's the first thing they're going to look at. I mean, is it exciting, and it's something that I want to do? Because that's what's going to sell people to on investing.
It's something you want to do. In other words,
is what you want to do. Can you project that in a way that it's exciting? There's a great business opportunity. It's a growing area within this domain. That's there, because you really don't want to be looking for investors who are thinking short term. So longer term, what that first decision is going to be based on both your idea and their belief in your market. So I find that securing financing is not the most difficult part, right? It's in WEDCO is an exception in that you will support small to medium enterprise either in the startup phase or in the growth phase, but you're not looking to take an equity position, right? Whereas my funding experience, and I've raised capital on more than one occasion, they're looking for an equity position in addition to the return. And there's a balance there, and I would say to anyone considering starting a business here, that one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making as they're going out to, or I've raised capital for firms, is they overvalue what they bring to the table. They overvalue their idea, their corporation, their concept, their intellectual property, and
what happens
then they walk away. Because the rule of thumb is, like, in terms of IP, if you've got an idea, you've developed it, could be in high tech. This is a great market in which to develop, IT or application development. I mean, it's not all about real estate and coffee shops here, and but the rule of thumb is the idea alone is worth 10%.
That's it.
And then from there, it's, do you have money to put in, and how far along the development path is your idea, and so right. And people will overvalue it, and because I would say 40-50% of something is worth a lot more than 100% of nothing.
Right.
So get the funding is always worth more than the idea.
So WEDCO does not seek equity positions, and what that means is taking partial ownership of an idea or a business. You were dealing in a world where funders were at times seeking equity positions.
Yeah.
Is there a drawback? Is there advantage to either way to the small business person who's starting out?
To the small business person, they'll naturally, I'd be disingenuous to say that giving up any equity is a good idea, right?
In other words, hang on to the equity.
Hang on if you can, but if you can't, then don't overvalue it. The fact that WEDCO doesn't is, I think it's fantastic. It's somewhat unique. I know publicly funded investment arms similar to WEDCO that actually do, and actually make it a requirement that if we're going to either invest or support your development. They'll have a rule of thumb for. So I think it's great that you don't take that position. You know, it definitely is far more. It feels more altruistic to me.
Well, I mean, we are a non-profit, right? We're not here to make money.
Right.
We're here to unleash funds to go into the private sector for the purpose
Right.
of responsible rural development. So
Right, but I could make the argument. I'm not telling you to do it, but it's playing devil's advocate. I could make the argument that it would be great for WEDCO to have a small piece of new successful businesses that they could use future funds to be able to do more in the community. And I know it's a direction.
Well,
it's not what we're here to talk
no,
about.
but
I'm saying that's how much I believe in the what you're doing here, what you've built. I mean, you've got an infrastructure in place that is working, and can only do more. It's great.
one of WEDCO's struggles is the more successful we are getting money out into the community, the less money we have to get out into the community.
Yeah.
In other words, our funds are finite as well.
Right.
And we have great partnerships with USDA in their rural development, and so we borrow money from them so that we can loan money out into. And we have great relationships with banks, and we supply a lot of the gap financing where the bank won't go quite that far to what the people need, and very often our clients are short on cash and long on desire to get the thing done and started. So, but it's an ongoing struggle for WEDCO to find funding because we're a nonprofit. We don't offer somebody 6% if they would give us $100,000.
Right.
We're looking for the $100,000 to invest in the community. It ends up being a gift from the person
Right.
or an investment.
Yeah.
But that same $100,000 could earn 10%, 6% over here versus technically 0%
Yeah.
for WEDCO. So it's a struggle. So
Well, it's an area that I'd love to at least discuss further on another show, but because those who are listening, they may not know, but the success rate of a startup who working with WEDCO is higher than the overall market experience with startups, right? So those,
why is that?
I have no idea, and I'm not going to say it's you.
Could be.
It could be.
It could be.
But it's significant, and it's a fact.
I think that's huge. I think that's important.
And again, those who may be listening now or in the future, one of the great experiences I had in the last few months was the first time I got involved just talking to WEDCO and Jack. Was he drove around the greater Wolfeboro, Winnipesaukee region, and he's pointing out businesses of all different types who had funding support from WEDCO, either and he was saying that's a startup. We helped them with seed money, and they wanted to grow and expand, and there are a lot of.
It's pretty
I
impressive.
was really
Yeah.
impressed with the impact you've had in the community. So
There's no question our impact. And
the other
which,
thing,
by the way, we've been doing this for 30 years, and I've only been doing it for a year and a half. So hats off to all the boards that went prior that got
Yes.
WEDCO from nothing in 94 to today.
Yeah.
But the impact is noticeable, no question about it. Listen, I knew this would be a two-parter.
well, I think you were bringing something up and it's a topic I think we should, like.
We gotta stop. We're gonna have to do a second part.
Well, I want to do a program just on board.
Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 3. Our guest has been Jeffrey Johnson. We are going to do a second, at least, the second part to this discussion. I think it's been fascinating. There's still so much more to talk about. Small business in the Pacific Rim versus small business here. Boards of directors, what they can and cannot do.
That's a key topic.
Yeah. So we gotta go. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time on WEDCOnomics. I'm Jack Terrill, Executive Director of Wentworth Economic Development Corporation. And again, thanks for tuning in.